Morning, this is a recap of everything that went on week commencing the 11th of March. So on Monday, after collecting the dogs after us being away all weekend, got the Sirocco serviced, which is, even by my standards, starting to get a bit old now, but still runs well. It's got about 100,000 miles on the clock, there or thereabouts, and he's coming up to it. It's petrol, so pretty, still really fast, really nice, leather heated seats and what have you. So it's, even though it's an old car, I think it's got a private plate on it, but it's 10, so yeah, it's 9 years old. It's wearing its age pretty well, but we've been having to juggle figures around, so I've had to kind of like put off the servicing of it, although to a degree it doesn't feel like it matters too much, because we probably, with obviously the business is only 5 minutes down the road, so it doesn't really get that much in the way of excessive mileage. So it's probably just the kind of the starting the engines every day that do the damage to it. So that, I think, I mean, it basically sums it up, doesn't it, really? I think the service light's possibly been on it for about 3 months, but it's took till this time till I could really justify actually taking it in to get the thing serviced. But it wasn't actually that expensive, really. Overall, it was about 140 quid, which isn't too bad. Didn't go into work on Monday. We had a funeral to go to. One of Wen's close friends, her dad died. I think he was 80 years old. I think he'd had a stroke and then pretty much gone downhill after that. We went to Walton Crematorium, which is near Walton Gardens, kind of like on the outskirts of Warrington. It was a really, certainly food for thought. I've not really been to, I think that's only the third, I don't know, I've probably only been to, fortunately for me, probably only been to about 5 funerals in my life, I would say. I'd struggle to name them all, but yeah, the way they did it was different to other ones. I think it's the first funeral I've been to where there wasn't this carol singing, and where there wasn't any hymns that were sung. It was mainly just about the guy's life. His brother got up and spoke and recounted some stories of when I think it was his younger brother or older brother. I think it was his older brother got up and recounted some stories about what they did when they were kids, and even crazy things. We were talking about a story of when yeah, that's right, it was the older brother. The older brother was about 7, and they were going, and the dad at the time, I think, was maybe 4, and he was known as something like the lad who walked 100 miles. And I think they'd gone to a cinema on the bus, quite a long way away, and for some reason or other they'd managed to get separated, and the actual lad, even though he was 4 years old, still managed to walk home. They were all panicking, couldn't find him or anything, and the older brother was getting told off for losing him. Bearing in mind, at the time he was only 7 years old, which really seems, in this day and age, seems ludicrous. Just goes to show you how maybe what's acceptable in one day versus another day, and how the changes of how they change. Helen, who's probably Wen's best mate, I suppose, or one of Wendy's close circle of friends, she read a poem out, and you could definitely see it was a struggle. It was kind of like a toss of a coin. I think when she was up there, I was just thinking, is her husband Paul going to have to take over or not? But he just stayed in the wings and supported her, and given the time, she completed the poem, which I think must be really difficult. I've never actually do it. Fortunately for me, as I say, I've not had to do any of that. So yeah, it was really touching. They showed loads of pictures of him with his family life, pictures with him with his kids, and yeah, I think there was somebody said to me, I think we were talking about branding within, managed to talk about branding within the actual crematorium, and I was like, well, what would you put in here? And I think I'd said to Vonnie, who works with her, I said, it just needs a statement on here, one life, make it count, because if that's not going to somebody's funeral, as well as remembering the life should be a kick up the arse if you need, or something like that, just to remember that you do only have one life here, so you really do need to make it count. Do the things that matter, and take risks where you need to, and just accept that this is your own, for me, this is your only chance. I certainly wouldn't go banking on any kinds of reincarnation or second life or anything like that. So that was probably a big takeaway for me on the day. We had a wake. There was a wake afterwards in a pub. Very well attended. There was so I stayed there probably maybe till 3:15, something along those lines. I think the funeral was maybe about 11:30 or something along those lines. Mainly, obviously, really just give Wendy as much support as I could. Spoke for quite a while to Karen, one of her mates, and about her daughter's Avril's business and she's starting off a massage business to her. Good luck to her. That all works out really well. Tuesday we had a house viewing from, this was a house viewing that was booked from the guy who you saw there. I think it was the lady who's sold a house for about £800,000 at this kind of place where footballers live. It's a bit of like a gated community kind of thing. So I spent the morning again cleaning the house top to bottom, making sure it was all spick and span. I think it may have been, was it 11 o'clock? I'm not quite sure when, but it was, let's say it was 11 o'clock that they came around for the viewing, and it was another, raining and pretty much a horrible day. So I'd put the dogs in the car, kind of driven up to the other end of the road, tried to keep an eye out for any new cars that were coming in and trying to suss out who it was. Didn't see one, so they obviously must be coming up Dobells Road. So I drove down maybe about 10 past 11. Saw what car it was on the drive, so I'd know if they came out the other way when they'd left, and then drove round the kind of like the circuit and parked further up Lime Avenue and kept my eye out. And about 11:15 they left, which I thought, God, that's not really long. I think an average viewing must take certainly between quarter of an hour, obviously, therefore as a minimum probably half an hour if you're more serious about the property. But we got a call off Josh, who's the owner of Hinchcliffe Homes, came in, and he said although the people liked the house, there wasn't enough character for them, so things like exposed brickwork, exposed beams, and it kind of like begs the question, isn't it? It's like, well, if you know that's what you're looking for in a house, and you want a house that's got character and beams and all the rest of it, then surely the 25 plus photos of every single room within the house, you can see that there are no beams, other than beams in the sunroom, and there is no exposed brickwork. So why come and waste people's time having a look, unless it's just to literally have a nose about them, perhaps maybe to gauge what size of a house what size of a house you would get for a certain budget. I can't think of any other reason why, but it, obviously it's frustrating because every time I'm having to give up like hours, and obviously there's the getting the hopes up and all the rest of it. We also got some more feedback from the couple who came to look at their house at the weekend. I think they call it Dobbs. This was the one who have the daughter who maybe is in the same form as Brody at Leftwich, which obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be a good person to sell to, because kind of like, how awkward would that be? You leave the house that you really like, and then somebody who's in the same form as you is then going, oh, I don't know, just making comments about a house that you've grown up in. So anyway, their feedback was pretty, I don't know, their feedback was basically the house is at the top end of their budget, which is fair enough, and the decoration wasn't to their taste. Well, obviously, we have the for two things. Number one, we've probably had most of the decoration here is the original decoration, which is now kind of 11 years old. Some of the bits of it have been repainted, like that wall's a bit darker and it's maybe a bit stronger in here in terms of the palette wise. But it's kind of like, well, if you go to any house, I think at the very minimum you're going to either want or expect that you're going to be redecorating it in some way, shape or other to put your stamp on it. So I've always found that to be a little bit of a puzzling thought. And if you're going to do decoration and whatever, well, go and buy some paint and paint the damn thing yourself, or hire people in. What's it going to cost you to paint a whole house? Maybe £1,000, £1,500, and if you're spending nigh on like £500,000 on a house, then you'd like to think you'd have the money to be able to paint the damn thing after you bought it. Still, but probably the most, if you want to call it galling, or the most frustrating comment is that there wasn't enough cupboards in the kitchen, and since that point counted them up, and there's 21 cupboards that are all probably a similar-ish size to the ones that you can see behind, which is obviously some of this is within the kitchen, so it's like of all the reasons not to buy this place, lack of cupboard space in the kitchen, I think for me would have to be one of the most crazy reasons that I think anybody could come up with. Still, anyway, bottom line was it's not for them. So obviously the search for a buyer continues. Ironically, on the actual same day, I was just thinking, well, right, okay, that's it now. All the initial kind of interest for the people who are looking for a new house, that's them gone now. Now it's just a question of waiting for, whatever is the standard length of time. But it actually turned out that we actually did have another viewing, then turned up in the afternoon for somebody who'd not even had the house on the market, and they wanted to see the house on Thursday. So I did do some research with Josh. He said that it usually takes around, in his experience, it takes about 6 to 7, it's usually 6 to 7 viewings on a house before it gets sold. And if you search online, I think it does depend on what area of the country it's in, but generally speaking, in the UK, the average length of time for a house to sell is 2 to 3 months, or which, yeah, I suppose it kind of puts it into perspective, really. It was a bit unrealistic to think that the house was going to go on the market and potentially sell straight away, just because we love the house and think it's different to everybody else. Somebody's got to come along and be in the right position to want the house and want this kind of house that's been laid out in this way. Wednesday the 13th, it was a seemed to be pretty rare day for me in that I was in the office all day. I sat down and I had a general we had a general meeting with a couple of people about with Vonnie and Emily about kind of health and safety and the structure of that side of the business, and off the back of that we had a kind of like a general announcement to the rest of the company, just underlining the importance that that everybody really needs to play their part and not just expect that other things are done for them. So, for example, if you're making a brew or anything like that, then just coming along and leaving the cup with the remainder of your brew in the sink for somebody else to come along and wash up, which I have to say has been me as well from time to time, in terms of having to come into the sink and then finding there's washing up to be done, and perhaps taking the bin bag out or whatever. It's just really just paying the part when we have pay for the offices to get cleaned and all the desks to get cleaned on a once a week on a Friday, but other than that it's really up to ourselves to keep the place tidy, and also for people to take responsibility when it comes to answering the phones for things like We Deliver and things like answering the buzzer of the door and not leaving it to Vonnie to do all the time. So it's just one of those things about just making sure that people are contributing across the business to the smooth running of it. And ultimately we are a team, and that's, I think, probably is the other than kind of like the individual talents of some of the people within the business. It's really kind of like teamwork, I think, and us pulling together that sets us or gives us an edge or makes us part, is that we are such a close bonded team. Wednesday we had Liverpool played Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and they beat them away, so that was good. Liverpool are now in the draw for the quarter-finals of the Champions League. Watched the Man in the High Castle and fell asleep again. I'm as part of the kind of like the watching a box set at 9 o'clock. This is a series that really should appeal to me, because it's about goes into the Second World War, and it's kind of like slightly fantasy, where it's playing out an altered reality where Germany and Japan won. So in theory it should be right up my street, but for some reason or other, either be it I'm tired or whatever that may be, or whether I think it's probably just, as I said, I've probably said before, there's just not enough action in it for me. So I'd watched The Walking Dead the previous night and had no problem whatsoever staying awake for that, but I'm still going to stick to it. Thursday the 14th, dogs woke me up with a little bit of, Harley woke me up with a little bit of an early morning bark, but I'm tending to starting to realign my body clock, where I'm certainly not waking at 4 o'clock anymore. It tends to be more that I'm naturally waking about 5, but was up about 5:30, gave me an opportunity to do a little bit more work and processes in some there was a job that had to be fitted, actually, funny enough, on the Friday at Toddington for KFC, and with one thing and another, and prioritising other works, it had literally got to kind of like, this is the do or die morning. I needed to get the job into production so that there was something to install the following day. So I was working from home on that day, because there was the viewing of the house, which was at 2 o'clock, so I was able to get quite a bit of work done, get that KFC job all put to print. On this particular one, the couple have got a house in Davenham, which has just gone on the market as well with Hinchcliffe Homes. I think it's on for 425. I think it's on down Church Road, which is a pretty quaint road. Davenham's such a lovely village. It really is. I don't know what we call it, quintessentially Cheshire village, kind of cobbled streets in area, that kind of thing. And theirs is a period cottage with that character cottage that's already been extended. I think it's got planning permission for a further extension to the house. I only know because we've had a nose or whatever on Rightmove just to see what it's like as well. Anyway, they came round, they spent a good half an hour probably over in the house, and I did my usual bit where I had the dogs in the car and did a drive past to see if they were still there. Came back into the house and Josh came pretty much out with a question, just said, would you accept $490 for it? Bearing in mind the house was on $495, and I was like, well, yeah, I definitely would. Obviously I'd have to agree with when, but that was within our kind of wriggle room. Did we have room to drop that far? And that was the lowest that we could go. So for me, the most important thing is to move the process on. So if it means that they feel that they're getting a deal, then so be it. So I agreed to that, and then said that Wen would call. So I rang Wen up, and when Josh was here I actually did, because I'm not the best. I can remember lots of things, codes, numbers. I'm no good at remembering conversation words for word, so I actually did the bizarre thing of getting the recorder or the dictaphone out on my phone and recording the feedback that Josh gave, which was like, the house was great for them. They've got a 3-year-old daughter, I think, and I think what they said the plans was for the house was to extend the sunroom that we've got there and take it out kind of like the full width of the house at the moment. Probably if the house is that wide, the conservatory, or it's not really a conservatory, or the sunroom, because it's got a roof on it, is about that wide. Now what they're going to do is they're going to extend it out, rebuild that, put bifold doors, those kind of like doors that open out, and redo the kitchen. And they talked about extending up into the loft and making that a bigger master bedroom with a walk-in wardrobe and all the rest of it. So definitely got a lot of big plans. I think off the back of that, Wen had then gone back and gone, well, if they've got all these plans, then they must, then really they should be asking the full asking price. But I think after Wen had spoken to Josh, he'd said that having the $5,000 off us would then kind of like mean that they'd have more wriggle room on their house in terms of what they could drop, and then that obviously made the onward chain more realistic to come about. Josh told me that they had a viewing that was for that particular same day. And they also had, I think, 3 viewings already. There's a lot of interest on the house. They had 3 viewings for the weekend. It's difficult when you come to these things not to overanalyze, the chances on it. And I think if you're in this is another one of Gary V's statements, it's the middle that always pays the price, is what he says. And I think by the middle he's talking about kind of what's the medium or the norm. So I don't class our house as being in the middle, and I don't class their house as being in the middle either. And by that I mean that there's a reduced number of houses that are like this. So say for example, although this is a new house, it's bigger than a new house. It's been built to a higher standard, so it's like not every new house has got concrete floors, for example. Not every new house is already fully developed into the loft, so you could pretty much put a staircase up and the house is pretty much ready to go. Likewise with them, their house overlooks fields at the back. As I said, it's it's very much the traditional character cottage in that you've got big exposed beams. Even though it's been redeveloped, it's been done with a lot of character. So it's got the Inglenook fireplace and what have you. It's very country cottage. So although it may well be to some people quite small, to other people, the fact that it's a character cottage and it's got that kind of like really traditional feeling, and again, like I say, it's been done to a high standard, then I think, for somebody who's looking for that kind of thing, then there's not going to be that many properties around, especially not in Davenham. There's a few, there's maybe 2 estates that are being built at the moment, but in terms of developments, there isn't a lot going on in Davenham, so I'm quite confident that I don't think it'll take too long. Certainly if we're going back to looking at that kind of 2 to 3 months for a selling thing, I don't know how long would I guess, hopefully maybe a month before they sell. And obviously at the same time, I would imagine, while they're still looking for a buyer, I guess we're still in the market. So if somebody comes along and they're in a position to buy our house from us, then already there's an offer on the table, which means that they can't come round with the offer's going to be pretty much at asking price, and they've got to be in a position to buy straight away for it to be before, I would have thought, before they'll even be allowed to come and view the house, or certainly that would be my thinking on it. Thursday was going on to the Brexit, which is really, it's a big week for Brexit this week. There was another big vote on it, and the exit from the European Union's now been delayed. It was supposed to be the 29th of March, which is pretty much a couple of weeks away. And the government's voted, or Parliament's voted to delay the exit for an unspecified amount of time while they come to an agreement on it. So it really is it's just a complete and utter mess, and really no idea what's going to happen on it. Thursday night, watched one of my favourite Game of Thrones episodes with Mac. So yeah, that was good. That's when was out at yoga. Friday the 15th, dropped when I was dropping the dogs off at doggy daycare. I'm just struggling to read my own writing here. They go to every week, they go and they hang out at doggy daycare, which is kind of like where all the dogs they all hang out together and they just play with each other like dogs do. So it's really good for socialising dogs. I never have any problems walking our dogs off the lead in public areas, because I know they're not going to be aggressive with other dogs. It's only really the other dogs that I'm concerned about, of where they're, how they are with them. But they have at doggy daycare, they have a customer feedback book. It's like an A4 book, very old school, quite even really, I suppose it's more like a customer comments file, and you kind of, one half of it maybe you've got kind of like your comments, and over here you've got like the reply on it. So I'd written in having a moan or really constructive criticism about the app, the sign-in app, which has just been really, I think it's just been really badly designed. But it's an app that they've bought off the shelf kind of thing, or that's what it turns out to be, because there's only actually me who's written any comments in the book, and this is maybe, the book's been there for maybe a month. So true to form, I thought I would put another one, because when you come to drop the dogs off, there's a big metal gate with a sliding thing, and every time, I don't know, like virtually every week, and you pull the sliding thing back, and it's that metal on metal grating sound that goes like right through you, and it's like, well, either A, that needs to be oiled or greased on a weekly basis, or B, the actual locking mechanism, needs to be on nylon bearings or something along those lines. I mean, it can't be nice for the people who work there having that. It can't be nice for the dogs. It's definitely not nice for me as a customer. So I'm just like, right, well, I'm going to write this down in here as well. The woman who, I think the manageress, is not the most not the most warm and welcoming person. That's probably the most diplomatic way that I could say it. A bit frosty. So I just said, look, I'm going to write this down. And she's like, well, we rent the space off the landlord, so we have to be careful how we speak to the landlord. I'm like, if it's the landlord, it's not your problem. Either A, sort it yourself. You're not telling me that. Well, this is one thing. This is how I'm playing it out in my head. I'm like thinking, well, how much does grease cost? A tub of grease is going to cost them what, £2-3 or something along those lines, or WD-40 or silicone. You're talking a couple of quid. Or if you do have to put it back to the landlord, it's a valid complaint. And if you've got like a bucket with a customer feedback and the customer's written and complained about it, then you need to put it back to the owners of the place. If somebody came to me with a complaint, I'd flipping act on it. So yeah, I do find that like slightly galling. Anyway, I was in work on the Friday. It was quite good. Liverpool, it was Champions League draw, and there's four Premiership teams. You've got Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Man United. They all had a draw. United's got Barcelona, which is a big tie, and Liverpool drew Porto, which really probably would be the ideal draw for them, because they played them last year and can comprehensively beat them. Man City play Tottenham, so that's kind of like two of the Premiership clubs will end up knocking each other out. If never plays to look at kind of routes for finals, but they're obviously people do these things, and if Liverpool do progress past Porto, that means they then either face Man United or Barcelona in the semis, which will be an absolutely mega tie. So one way or another, if Liverpool do get through, it's going to be right up there with one of the biggest European ties, I think. On the Friday, our guys in the office are still busy working on doing all these special effects and stuff for Accolade Wines. Not so much a pitch, but it's more like a presentation of ourselves that we're trying to impress them with the things that we can do. So constantly see people hovering around. We've got a fish tank in the office and people are still squirting these coloured dyes into it for the video effects for I think it's a brand called Echo Falls Mixed Fruit. So yeah, just letting them get on with that. Rich Evans, who's our PR and copywriter, proper professional writer, he's been with us now for his work anniversary coming up on the Saturday. He's been with us for 4 years, which is amazing. I think probably back in the day originally, I think in my head I thought he would, I always had this thing that Rich would leave us and go somewhere else, but I think we're just lucky that he's been here that long. He's a really, really incredibly rock solid kind of guy, really, really like Mr. Reliable, just completely reliable and trustworthy, great guy. Went round to see my parents on the Friday evening to then discover they'd booked yet another cruise. This is the 21st cruise that they're going on. Saturday 16th I took the dogs for a walk, really pretty much catching up on work, so took the dog for a walk. It was very rainy, got absolutely soaked on that. Spent a lot of time on TikTok, felt really guilty about it. It's properly addictive now. I'm like spending such huge chunks of time on it. Caroline, who's one of Wendy's mates from Kendal, came down to stop over the weekend. They went out, they had afternoon tea at Chime. I think they brought some leftovers of some scones and fruit and stuff down, which I had, which is very nice. I've eaten some leftovers from the tea. I in the evening watched Avatar with Broads, which he hadn't seen. We went on the Rite of Passage ride at Disneyland last year, so it was must have been quite interesting for Broads, because that's what that ride at Disney's based on. So for some reason he'd just never seen the film before. I'm not quite sure why, but such a long film, like 3 hours. There's a point in the film at 2 hours where the mining company who's on him kind of like smashes down the indigenous lives. The indigenous people who live there just kind of like destroys their part of their forest, and that feels like the end. But then you've got another hour after that, and I'd actually had like a little bit of a nap before the film to try and avoid falling asleep, but I still did fall asleep. Broads woke me up, which was good, and so I was able to watch the rest of the film at an ice pop just to kind of like wake me up and try and get me through to the end of the film. Went to collect Wend from Helen's house, Wend and Caroline, about midnight's what we agreed, but didn't get back. Stayed there and had a bit of a chat for a bit with the girls, with Wend and her friends, and just home for about 1:30, something like that. Dogs woke me up about 6:30 on the Sunday, but I took a pillow downstairs with me and got a blanket out from the couch and just continued sleeping, so that was good. Slept through till 9:30. I seemed to sleep really well on the couch. I mean, I've got to admit, it is a really comfy couch, but bearing in mind that I'm sleeping in there with the dogs, you'd imagine that I wouldn't really get some sleep, but that was, what was that be? Yeah, it's a good 8 hours sleep, so a full night's rest. Spent the rest of the day again, catching up on things at work, just going through my list of things, prioritising stuff on prioritising my work on Trello. I've actually done something different on Trello, which seems to work now. Trello's this Kanban way of organising your life or your jobs. But what I've done now is started off a new column on that, which basically says work that's been complete on that day. So it's kind of what I would normally do is have, in the old days, would have paper lists, and I'd already draw a line through the things that I've done, or highlight them or tick them off, so there's some visual record of like actually what you've done. On Trello, what you do is you archive the card, or that's what we have been doing, and I've found that there's not that feeling of satisfaction of looking at all the things that you've done, assuming you've done a lot of things. But on this particular day, this weekend I've done another column on it that says completed on that particular day, so I drag them across and move them, and then the plan would be then the following day you do archive the ones that are then finished, and ones that need to go back on your board, they just go back on the board. So that seems to be working pretty well. Inviting my parents down to come and watch. I used Now TV to watch specific games for Liverpool. Liverpool were playing Fulham away, which should, on paper, have been an easy game. Fulham are, pretty much adrift at the bottom of the Premiership. They're like second bottom or equal bottom. But it was proper struggle. Liverpool scored one early doors and then just couldn't seem to get the second goal. And Ryan Babel, who used to play for Liverpool years and years ago, actually from a mistake of Van Dijk and the goalkeeper Becker managed to fumble with the ball, and he was there to stick it in the back of the net. But fortunately, there was a penalty that was given. It was a penalty, probably a little bit of a soft one. The goalkeeper took Mane down, and James Milner was there to put it away, so they won 2-1, which is good. Liverpool go back to the top of the Premiership, 2 points clear of City, but City have got a game in hand, which I think is against Man United, so going to be a rare thing here where I'll actually be hoping that Man United can beat them or get a draw out of them. So we'll see how that goes. Did promise to list some stuff out on eBay. One of the things I've been talking to Emily about was, Emily been talking to me about was in the office, was the amount of kind of associated things that were hanging around. So we've got like boxes with frames in, and like a pallet with a whole load of stuff that like one of our clients had Ginsters had delivered to us and asked us to hold it. It's like a pallet's worth of little display cases. So the conclusion was that I need to make some more storage area, or ask Rob to build it for us. But to do that, I need to get rid of we've got a server cabinet that that's probably the size of a telephone box, and then there was the other original one. So I've listed both those on eBay. It took some time, probably spent over an hour doing that, and then because I was on the roll, I've also listed the Pirelli tyres that are off my car when I swapped them from run flats to just normal tyres. So they're on now for sale. So yeah, I mean, I've got the whole rest of the stuff in the loft to sell, so I need to just keep chipping away at it. So that's my first steps to getting that done. I had somebody message me about the tyres, funnily enough. I think I put them on, it's not like £100 for the pair, which is, I think, ridiculously cheap. And somebody said, oh, what's the buy it now price? I was just like, well, okay, if you want to buy it now, you're going to have to pay double. It's like £200 for the pair, which is still really cheap. A hell of a lot cheaper than what I paid for them, of course. Not to reply back from them, so hopefully they'll sell, hopefully we'll get some bids on them, and then we can start start selling and getting, as Gary Vee would say, while we're all keeping, we're sat on potentially hundreds and hundreds or thousands of pounds worth of stuff in the loft that we're just never going to use, and I'm definitely guilty of that, even though mine's loft and garage. That's the first thing I've done, is got those out for, put those out for sale. So this week coming forward, we've got, it's going to be a short week for me this week. Away this weekend in London. Hopefully again, not heard anything back yet from the people looking to buy our house. So I don't know what happens now, whether we chase the estate agents to see how their house sale's going along. I guess that's what it is. I think Wen did a lot of paperwork, a massive amount of paperwork yesterday for home, like going through things like stuff to do with direct debits and kind of like life assurance and what have you. So I really appreciate her, taking that time and helping with the paperwork. I have to say, if nothing else, I would say that Wen and I are, really are a great team when it comes down to it. That we divvy up all the work. It's not ever down to any one of us to do, and I think that that helps a lot. I think the other thing that was really interesting, actually, just reflecting on things when we went round to pick Wend up from Helen's, and then we were talking about how different couples, I think we must be really different to everybody else, because all our money's kind of like pooled together. There's no my account, or there's not really so much, although we do have individual accounts, all the money goes together and everything gets paid out together and we all spend from it together. But it seems like a lot of other couples have this thing where they have their money and then separate monies, and it's just, I don't know, just feels like really awkward. Oh yeah, like kind of like he pays for all the meals out, or he pays for all the holidays, or I pay for all the bills, and it's this and that, and it's like, wow, this is just see it just being such a bone of I think if Went and I had it, it would be such a bone of contention, I think, between us, and cause stress, but again, different people do things different ways. I just mainly just wasn't aware of it. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, that's it for me till next week, and I don't know what we're up to now. I think it's probably maybe my 9th my 9th version, a ninth episode or something like that. So yeah, next will be double figures, assuming I can get it, assuming I'm around to do my next one. But yeah, so yeah, here we go. Until next week. See you again soon.